What's up everybody, it's Joe from JLW Games coming at you with another cool video, back in Planet Coaster with our new park. So this episode is quite interesting because I was going to just create kind of a awesome gift shop type building over here, and that was going to be it, but I had so much time left afterwards that I do end up adding a coaster in the end. So in this episode we added this kind of like this gift shop here, which has a kind of cool layout, I thought. And we also add the layout of the first roller coaster in the park, which is kind of cool. So the roller coaster I decided to go with here was a B&M floorless, because I haven't really used that track as much as, you know, pretty much since Alpha 1. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to revisit and see if it's come along quite a bit, or at all. So seeing it without the black or the blue track might be nice to have. So that's always nice. So these buildings, again, I don't want to go with all square rectangles. I want to have some sort of unique shape to them. And I'm having a little bit of an interior on these shops as well, because they're walk-in shops is what they're intended to be. I mean, you're not gonna really see the inside that much, but in case you do, I decided to put a couple walls on here. It's kind of almost looks like a maze on the inside, which is kind of funny, but it's just kind of a walk-in gift shop, which is kind of cool. Which is just Hat's Fantastic, which, you know, is a pretty cool store, I guess. I can't wait till we get more shops and stuff that we can use in our parks. It's going to be quite nice to have those in our parks. Now, I do notice kind of a thing that's happening in this park is all the buildings are pretty much looking the same, which is something I wanted to avoid. And they're looking the same as in walls and roofs all look the same. If it wasn't for that, it wouldn't be as bad. But again, I'm still working on my modular building skills. And hopefully I do hope to experiment a little bit in this park. I still have been, I don't want to say scared, but I still have yet to get around to it in this park so far. And I want to, but I just don't want to mess it up and make it look bad, and just have a long video of me just trying to experiment with it, which of course if I do that, I'd probably just cut it, because you guys don't want to watch me just failing miserably. I honestly just need to do some practice on my own outside of the, you know, recording or outside of recordings and stuff like that, just to get myself a little bit more familiar, and I'm sure over time I'll figure some stuff out. But I've always been a person that likes to use a lot of in-game stuff, what it's meant for. So like, you know, if a wall's meant to be a wall, I use it as a wall. If a roof is meant to be a roof, I use it as a roof, you know, whatever it's supposed to be. Because I find it more simpler, and just, you know, if you create something that's not meant to be created with something, you know, it probably won't look as good as it's supposed to be. I'm not saying that that stuff will necessarily look bad if you don't use it what it's not intended for, but you know, if you understand what I mean. I mean, as long as it looks good, who cares? You know, and that's just it. So I need to start using some more walls probably in some future buildings eventually, to give it a little bit of a different feel and throughout the park, because it's starting to look a little bit too much alike. But overall I still like the overall look of the buildings, but you need to add a little bit more. I do need to add a little bit more into that, and not to mention all the planters and foliage that I have in this park. It's starting to get a little bit crazy, and every little spot, you know, it has to be filled in. That's just my philosophy in life with this stuff. So here we are getting into the roller coaster, the B&M Hyper, or not the B&M Hyper, man, I can't even get my coaster types correct today. The B&M Floorless coaster. Anyways, but I decided to build on the outside here, just beyond the shop that we just built, and it's gonna have its own awesome little area here. So this coaster has had a lot of errors with it, and you'll see that throughout the next couple of episodes. I do end up completing this layout in this episode, but it's had to have a lot of tweaking with the with this layout. I've tweaked it many times throughout the next couple episodes, and even a little bit off screen as well, just to help, get it to where it needs to be. In other words, it wasn't running the greatest when I tested the ride, and it just didn't turn out good at all, to say the least. My goal is to try and make it as smooth as possible, and sometimes that can be kind of hard sometimes. But for overall, it's actually turning out pretty smooth. It goes pretty fast through the whole thing, and that's kind of the main issue I had. I did have a later you'll see I actually make a mid-course brake run that doesn't really work real well, because it slows it down too much when it was already going too fast, and it's just kind of a nightmare and stuff. And I'm still working on kind of my custom inversion stuff and overall. So I think this element actually turns out pretty nicely. So the first element I like to start off with, and this coaster is an element inversion. I love emblements, and I probably overuse them in my B&M coasters, but you can't have a B&M without an element inversion, right? If I'm correct. One thing I also wanted to have was kind of a dive loop at the same time, because the dive loop is kind of like the backwards version of an element in a way. You're just going from the other direction into the loop, which is kind of I think is also a really neat inversion to have, which I actually have. Interesting enough, this coaster itself doesn't actually have just a regular loop. It has an element, it has a 0G roll or corkscrew. It's actually hard to tell which it actually ends up being, but I do have to adjust this next element quite a bit when I do get to it. And before I got too far, I decided to actually get a little bit into the station. That way I kind of knew where I was going with that, and kind of the brake run at the end of the ride as well. And my goal in this park is actually have some transfer tracks on all the rides as well. So I do successfully get a transfer track into this as well, which I believe I actually get into here, which I actually do, yeah. So the main problem I always have with this is I can't get close enough to the track without it, saying it's, too close to the track. And that's kind of an issue in a way as well. But I make it work in the end with the kind of this blue type of thing for the, I think it's actually for the fence. And it works out pretty well. This is what I've seen a lot of people use kind of for their transfer tracks that aren't actually real. But as you can see, it doesn't actually connect with the track, but it works. It actually ends up working. And I also had a goal to actually have a track to the side as well, so I had to place a completely new coaster itself to actually make it work. And it's kind of a tricky thing, because I didn't want to have the station part of this coaster in there, but I wanted to make sure I had the track just by itself. And later I actually end up adding some drive wheels onto it as well, to give it more realistic feel at the same time. And then I realized that I needed to make the track even with the transfer table, that way it, otherwise it wouldn't have made sense. But I actually do fix all that. In the end, I do actually finish all that and get all that worked out. So No, it's all good. So yeah, and I thought this actually turned out pretty nice for being a transfer track. And if I'm not mistaken, I think we're actually going to have transfer tracks in the final game's release as well, but not at the moment. And I can't wait to have that actually added into the game. It's going to be actually a really neat feature to have for this game, I think. So anyways, getting back into the layout of this coaster, this layout actually does change. Like I said, it does change multiple times actually, because I was originally going to have like a corkscrew here, or pretty big corkscrew, but it didn't work out because the element ended up being a little bit too small. So afterwards, it actually does end up morphing into more of a zero-G roll rather than a corkscrew. Or you can either call it possibly an oversized corkscrew as well, I'm not sure. But we'll see what everyone thinks. But you won't be seeing that until probably the next episode, I think. And I actually add a whole new section of the ride here and take out this overbank turn in the end. Because this overbank turn didn't get it done the way I needed it to. And I add a little bit more to the ride, and mostly because the ride seemed a little bit too short, and it still had a lot of speed and momentum at this point where I was. So, and it just wasn't smooth enough for me. So, again, this layout does change quite a bit, not like dramatically, but it does change quite a bit to make it the way it needs to be, with the overall, rideability factor and stuff like that. It's got to be rideable and stuff. And I did hit a small problem in some terrain and stuff like that, but in the end, I do end up fixing that with using the terrain tool and all that jazz and stuff. So it all ends up working up in the end for that. So, as of this part, it's just standing still. I don't know if there was actually footage going on right there. It might have froze, but the time lapse kind of froze on me. I don't know if that was actually meant to do that. So, anyways, this next element that's going in is actually a kind of like a dive loop, kind of the opposite or the backwards version of an Emmelman. So, at least that's what I always thought of it as, because you're going in an Emmelman, you go up into the loop part and then the turn, and in this part you do the turn first, straight down into the loop itself. So I always thought dive loops were actually always fun. I thought they were pretty cool elements, and they really are. As you can see, I did get a little bit in the terrain, kind of nasty terrain type parts here, but that's because terrain, you always have to edit it, and my time lapse is actually freezing. I hope that isn't the case in the end of the video, but if it is, I do apologize for that. Maybe I had some problems when the recording, I don't know. But anyways, this was a mid-course brake run at this point, but I actually do end up getting rid of that because it slows it down a little bit too much for this last part of the ride, where I add one more inversion. I wanted to have at least 5 inversions, but at this point it was only to 4, and I do actually end up adding another extra inversion when I change the layout a little bit. So this is kind of like a corkscrew, maybe zero-G roll type element here. It kind of rolls into a kind of like a helix type feel to it, and heads back through itself into the brake run to finish the layout. So but that's about it for the video as well. So let me guys know what you think. Again, this layout does change quite a bit, so we'll be seeing a lot of change in this layout for this B&M. But hope you guys have enjoyed it as much as I have. I'm having a lot of fun with this park, not gonna lie. It's really awesome. But anyways, have a great day and an even cooler tomorrow. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.